Good afternoon. Welcome to the Charlotte Post Publishing Company. We present C-Suite Conversation. Kieth Cockrell, President of Bank of America, North Carolina. Welcome to the conversation, everyone. My name is Linda Johnson. I will be your host today. I would like to introduce you to our team. Today I have with you our publisher, Gerald O. Johnson. It's always a pleasure to have him join us. Along with me hosting, I have Nichelle Spears and Herbert White, our editor-in-chief, who will moderate the conversation today. Thank you and enjoy our conversation this afternoon.
Good afternoon and welcome. At this time, I would like to invite you to open up your chat and Q&A windows, which are located at the bottom of your Zoom screen. A diagram has been provided for you. During this webinar, if you have any questions, please use your Q&A window only to type your questions, and they will be answered throughout the conversation. The chat window will be used for our team to communicate the various resources of today's webinar and ways that you can support the Charlotte Post Publishing Company with links to the webinars, donations, and sponsorships. Thank you. And at this time, I would like to invite our publisher, Gerald Johnson, to take it from here.
Thank you, team, for bringing me to the table and make it sound like I had a choice, but here I am. Anyway, we got the situation where the Charlotte Post is the leading African-American publication in North Carolina. We are producers of content that's done in several different ways: newspaper, website, e-blast, newsletters, Apple News. I mean, you can get it in any different ways. And we are located in Charlotte, as well as in the Raleigh-Durham area with the Triumph Tribune. And again, we appreciate your support, and we love doing the C-Suite conversations with great guests. And we have one today that we're looking forward to having a conversation with. And with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to our chief executive editor, Herb White.
Thank you, Gerald, and welcome to the C-Suite Conversation. This is something that is a new initiative to the Charlotte Post Publishing Company, in that we took an idea that's been used in other places, bringing business leaders to the masses. What we wanted to do is try something new, and we want to help business leaders connect with our readers and our audiences in terms of sharing their stories, from their beginnings to their current positions of leadership and what it takes to get to those positions. And what we've tried to do is bring folks from the nonprofit sector, the business and corporate sector, and share their stories with audiences. And we appreciate everyone who's participating today, and our special guest, Mr. Cockrell, who is the president of Bank of America Charlotte, and he's the head of executive escalations, where he oversees deployment of Bank of America resources to address social and economic concerns, which is something that is at the front and center of a lot of conversations in this country and in this community as well. And he's been around banking for, he's been in financial services for over 8 years, including COO and consumer and small business for the National Community Market Executive, where he was responsible for 1,800 centers, and president of customer service, where he was responsible for call centers and leading debit card and ATM businesses. Of course, that's a lot of business jargon and not a whole lot. Well, I'm not exactly the businessy kind of person, so I'll leave that part of it alone, and we'll go ahead and we'll start the conversation with our guest today, Kieth Cockrell. Welcome to our space, Keith, and let's get started.
All right, Herb, it's great to be with you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Sure. We'll throw the first question over to the publisher since that's where he ranks. So, Gerald, go ahead.
Thanks, Herb, and thank you. This is only an hour-long show, so I'm glad you finally was able to let me get back in here.
You're welcome.
Mr. Cockrell, I would like to start off by going back to your roots, and let's kick it off with your roots and where you were born and being raised, where you were born, and just tell us a little bit about that part of your life before we get into basically where you are today. We want to walk up to where you are today.
Okay. Well, let me start off by saying again, thank you for allowing me to join you for this discussion, and hopefully we'll have a good discussion. I'm originally from New York, Long Island, New York. The first in my family actually born in the North, and was raised by my grandparents. So like many folks have had the tremendous opportunity to be strongly influenced by a grandmother that was one of the most amazing people I've ever met in my life. I'm one of 8, but never actually lived with my natural mom or father. As mentioned, I was raised by my grandparents, and as a young person, that was a bit challenging for me. But now looking back at it, I can actually say that was my first blessing, big blessing, because Anna Lee Cockrell was just an amazing woman. So born in New York, I didn't venture very far from Long Island, in Huntington, Long Island, and went on to school at Columbia University in Manhattan. I guess an interesting factoid would be that 2 significant people amongst many that I went to school with, first I met my wife there, and secondly, Barack Obama, President Obama was one of my classmates while I was at Columbia. And so after college, I was an engineering major, and I joined the IBM company for the first 10 years of my career in Detroit, Michigan, which is kind of like a second home for me, actually. And Serena and I found ourselves again, she was working on the West Coast, and I made the first move. And when I relocated to the Bay Area, after marrying Serena, Bank of America was my client. And so that was my actual introduction to Bank of America. I was enjoying a very successful career with the IBM company, kind of in technical sales and marketing. And after a successful stint at the West Coast with Bank of America being my client, I relocated back, got promoted back to Detroit as a manager. That was my first managerial opportunity with the IBM company. And Ford Motor Company was my client, my primary client. And after a couple of years of that, was promoted to a key position in headquarters with IBM, North American headquarters, back to New York. And so over the 10 years that I was with the IBM company, was enjoying a great run. And I thought I would retire from the IBM company, quite frankly. I had worked for them a couple of summers while I was in school before I graduated. And so I thought I would have the prototypical 30+ year career at the IBM company. And while I was in New York in headquarters, the Bank of America reached back out to me. And they had been talking to me about joining the bank, to be quite honest with you. But this time they were successful. They said, look, we don't want to go back and forth. Tell us what it's going to take for you to come join Bank of America. And I did what I know you would do, Gerald. I called my wife, the real boss. And she put the package together. And I told her, I said, they're not good. What are you talking about? They're not going to do this. And sure enough, their response was, anything else? And so I felt somewhat obligated to say yes. And I would actually say that my decision to leave the IBM company was, at that time, without question, the most difficult decision that I had ever had in my life. Much more difficult than my decision to marry my wife, to be quite honest with you. because I really did love the IBM company. But I thought that Bank of America was giving me an opportunity that, quite frankly, IBM wasn't willing to give me at that time.
So what was your major coming out of Columbia?
Industrial engineering. And I was good in math science in school. I didn't know an engineer in my life when I was trying to decide on a major. And I had the good fortune, I went to public school. I had the good fortune of having a guidance counselor in my high school. And she introduced me to the concept of engineering and said that, hey, you know, they make good money and you're good in math and science, and that's a requirement. So you should think about engineering. And so that's what I listed as my major. I did well in chemistry when I was in high school. And so I applied to school thinking I was going to be a chemical engineer. I didn't know a chemical engineer. I could barely spell it, to be quite honest with you. I'm thankful that, you know, those first 2 years while I was in school, you know, you're just taking core requirement classes. And of course, I took freshman chem and I was like, oh my gosh, how much chemistry do I need to take to get this degree? And I was like, I'm definitely not going to be a chemical engineer. So it took me a while to kind of figure it out. But I found industrial engineering, which is kind of that cross between, you know, productivity and time motion studies back in those days and re-engineering. And that kind of fit me. But without question, one of the great advantages that I experienced while I was, you know, in school was summer jobs. So despite the fact that I was playing football at that time, you know, I was playing in the Ivy League. And to be quite honest with you, I needed to work during the summer to help pay for my education. And those were tremendous experience for me, not only to determine what I wanted to do in my career, but quite frankly, those first couple of summer jobs kind of told me what I didn't want to do. And, you know, I had my grandparents to model that, to be quite honest with you, because they were laborers. You know, they didn't have careers. They didn't have the benefit of going to college. So I watched, you know, my grandmother and my grandfather go to work every single day to jobs that, quite frankly, they hated. But they did because they were raising me.
So what were you doing that would cause the bank to want to get an industrial engineer on board? I mean, I'm trying to figure out the stretch in terms of what did they see in you to say, we need this guy to come over to the bank?
Well, you know, that's been another blessing in my life, is that, you know, throughout my career, Gerald, there have been individuals who have exposed me or given me opportunities or been in my ear that saw something in me that, you know, I didn't have the wherewithal to. I can't say that my entire career has been intentional. It's never been intentional. I never had a career plan. And so, like I mentioned, I thought I would retire from the IBM company. And so that experience with Bank of America was wonderful for me because, you know, sometimes, you know, you're just in the right place at the right time. Bank of America was the first major financial institution in the US to make a commitment to the IBM PC. So I'm dating myself, but this was back in the late 80s. IBM came out with the PC in 83, and Bank of America decided that they were going to upgrade their branches with this new technology. And so I had just married and relocated. It was a huge project, and we were fortunate to win the bid, if you will. And so as you can imagine, you know, it was 10,000 PCs, 20,000 PCs. We were a California bank at that time. So it was one of the largest PC deals that the IBM company had done at that point. And so clearly it had a lot of focus and attention, and that worked out well for me. You know, exposure is a double-edged sword, so to speak. You know, it cuts both ways. If you do well, then it can create new opportunities for you. If you don't do so well, then it can end a career. And I was fortunate. I worked with some outstanding teammates at the IBM company, It was kind of leading edge at that time. Of course, we didn't want it to fail because of the significance of the project and what it meant to us and the IBM company. And of course, the bank was, making a significant investment. But for me personally, it gave me tremendous access to senior executives in Bank of America because of the size of the investment at that time. And so bottom line was the initiative went well. And because I was so engaged in it and it gave me that exposure to senior executives in the firm at that time, I wasn't surprised that, they were interested in recruiting me to come join them because it was a very large initiative and we were successful in managing it to a successful conclusion.
So you came over on the technical side initially.
I did. So I had a technical degree, but the reality is I never technically worked as an engineer my entire life. And I thank IBM for that because I thought sales was a 4-letter word. And so to actually begin my career, in technical sales, I could have never imagined. But IBM gave me the opportunity to, have that internship in Detroit after my first internship as an engineer in Endicott, New York. So those were back in the days, Gerald, where, and some things really don't change. I was a minority engineer. We called it back in those days, a person of color, I guess, in today's vernacular. So we were in high demand, different time and place. I came out of school with 8 or 9 different job opportunities. I think 4 or 5 from the IBM company alone. So IBM gave me the option of choosing, did I want to pursue my profession in engineering or in sales? And again, as a young person coming out of high school, I would have never thought I would have gone into sales. But that actually worked out very, very well for me. And then to give it all up when it was going well and join financial services industry, I couldn't have written that script. But it's obviously worked out very, very well for me. And what I would say is that, some things, are table stakes if you really want to have an opportunity to have a successful career. And, Anna Lee Cockrell and Charlie Cockrell taught me a couple of things. And one was clearly that, you got to work hard, that nothing's given. And so I don't apologize, Gerald, that, many of the years of my career, I worked hard. I turned the lights on in the morning, and I turned them off at night. I might not be the smartest person, but you just weren't going to outwork me. You just weren't going to. And I didn't, at first I would say that I was heavily motivated. I had been poor before, so I never wanted to be poor again. So I was very motivated to, get promoted and get an increase. And not because I felt like I was competing against other people. I just wanted people to recognize my work. And I literally kept score. When I'd make a recommendation in those early days of my career, if I'd make a recommendation, I literally kept score. And if my boss or the team didn't accept my recommendation, it's like, golly, that, and that helped me, I think, learn more and have a willingness to understand and do self-assessments to really say, so why didn't my idea, move forward? And so I wanted to do great work, and I've always been motivated by doing great work.
I got 1,000 more questions, but I'm gonna let her step in here for a minute or two.
Well, I appreciate that. And so even when you talk about making the transition from IBM over to Bank of America, was there ever a time when you thought that maybe you were a fish out of water? And if so, or even if there weren't, then was there a person or persons who helped you in that transition to go from an IBM to a Bank of America and do a totally different discipline?
Yeah, that's a great question, Herb, because so you already know that I had experience with Bank of America. So when I actually joined Bank of America as an employee, I was not only known by some of the senior leaders in Bank of America, I was known by many because of the impact of that project. And I was known as the IBM guy, and so they weren't surprised. So I give my first boss at Bank of America a ton of credit, Chris Calero, a ton of credit, because Chris saw something in me that he really believed he could use to be really successful. So that first job that I had coming into Bank of America was a relatively easy transitional step for me because it was implementing technology. So I was enticed because instead of recommending and trying to advise customers on how to use technology, the growth opportunity for me was somebody was going to give me the opportunity to actually implement. Well, I really hadn't been responsible for that. That's truly the customers or the client's responsibility. Yeah, I'm going to advise you and try to convince you that this IBM solution is really the right thing. But Chris gave me the opportunity and to really say, okay, we don't want you just to advise, we want you to actually do. And you're going to be held accountable for the success of that implementation. And that was enticing to me. And then I had the pleasure of working for really an outstanding leader. Chris is very talented, wicked smart. If you gave him a number, he remembered it, 10 years later. So there was no fooling Chris. You had to know your business, and that made me better, having an opportunity to work for an executive that had high expectations, believed in you, but had high expectations. And so I had to be on my game without question. So I thought I was pretty good at IBM and what I was doing, but there's no question Chris made me better. And because he was so good at what he did, he kept getting new opportunities in the company. And the other thing that I would say that was important for me, Herb, in those early years with the bank, was I was committed to Chris. So as he continued to advance in the company, he kept grabbing me and say, hey, come along. And I stayed with him. And so as he got bigger, I kept getting bigger. So those first 5 years in the company, my office actually didn't change. I was in the same office that I, started, or at least those first 3.5 years, let's say. I was in the same office, but my job changed an awful lot, kept getting bigger and bigger. And that was because I did have a tremendous sponsor in this guy that hired me, believed in me. And it was kind of like a snowball effect. He trusted me and gave me responsibilities, and I didn't want to let him down. And so I worked really, really hard to really do great work. And because I dreamed about doing great work, in most cases, it was pretty good work. And I got rewarded for that. And so, I was, young and trying to be impressionable for my new wife. And so I was making more money. And so, like I told you, I didn't want to be poor again. And so it was kind of going downhill for me. Hey, the more I worked and the contribution that I was making, the more compensation I was starting to receive. And I liked that. And so I stayed with Chris until the merger between Bank of America and Nations Bank. And that's what brought me to Charlotte the first time.
And then when you talk about the bank after the merger, talk a little bit about that sort of transition, because Bank of America was already a national brand, but now it's even bigger. It's coast to coast, literally. Does the leadership style or the mentoring change with the size of the bank?
Well, because I did have the experience of transitioning out of information technology into the line of business at Bank of America and trying to, create this brand, right? Or change in my brand from the IBM guy to, if I wanted to be the IBM guy, why would I leave IBM? And so I had to convince people that I'm in financial services. I'm a banker now. And so I wanted to demonstrate, and I used to, back in those days, I had a green folder, and that green folder always had all my numbers in it. It ended up being a tremendous habit, if you will. So when I came to Charlotte, I didn't know this, Herb, but I was in whatever building, I think it's the Fifth Third building now, and my boss was in the corporate center. And I was running ATM and debit card at that time, and I thought I had a really good business. It was growing very, very rapidly, but there wasn't a lot of appreciation by the senior leadership of the company at that time. And so I'd come over once a month to have my business review with my then boss, Pat Phillips, another great executive in the firm. And I would just study like crazy. I wanted to have every number on the tip of my tongue, what my forecast was going to be, because I was hopeful that I was going into the headquarters building, and I kept thinking that one of these days I'm going to get on the same elevator as Mr. McCall. And whenever that day happens, I'm going to know my business. I'm going to know my numbers. And he doesn't know my business really well, and he needs to know this business. Little did I know that, and every month after month, I'd be looking for Mr. McCall or our CFO, and they were never, in the lobby or in the elevator. Years later, I found out, well, they never took those elevators. But it was great training for me, because that infamous day did happen, where I got a phone call out of the blue from Mr. McCall's office, and it was a series of questions about my business and the decision that I made. And let's just say that it was a very challenging conversation, but I thought it was my opportunity, Herb. He's calling me. I've been looking for him. He's calling me. And so I was ready. I guess what you call having my elevator speech about my business.
Yeah.
And this is pre-Durbin and regulation changes. So the debit card business was really a very, very powerful business back in those days. I had something like 250% returns on, the capital that we were investing in the business. It was growing like a weed. So there was a lot of business dynamics that, again, I was in the right place at the right time. We were looking for revenue growth. I had it, and it was very, very profitable. And Mr. McCall's calling me, asking me questions about my business. I was like, oh my gosh. But he was really calling me about, we were going through a transition, and I was promoting the product. And part of that promotion was promoting it to employees. And I had a colorful marketing glitzy thing that I sent to every employee. And when you go through a merger, there's some staffing impact and expense reductions. And so he wasn't calling me to thank me for the wonderful marketing material that I had just sent to every employee. He was calling me saying, what was I thinking? Do you realize that we're reducing jobs here and you're spending money on this? And Herb, I thought that was my moment. I said to him, oh, but this is the best part, Mr. McCall. I didn't spend one penny of Bank of America money. See, I had negotiated a separate contract with Visa at that time. And this is all Visa money. This isn't Bank of America money. And his response to me was, son, do you know who pays for Visa?
Oh, lesson learned.
Lesson learned. So the story really, or the lesson for me was that there is no substitute for preparation. But you also have to have flexibility and recognize that there's always more to the story or to the business opportunity that perhaps you haven't been exposed to. And when Mr. McCall hung up that phone on me, I didn't even know if I had a job after that, to be quite candid with you. But one thing I knew is that I was confident in what we were doing. Maybe there's a lesson that I'm going to have to learn here, but this really was a good business. The financials of this business were really, really strong. And I had that moment that was presented to me, and I was prepared for it, to at least get a couple of my sound bites out to him. And that was the first business that I had that I, really was a P&L, that I had it all, and really put me on the map, so to speak, for my career at Bank of America, to demonstrate that I was a fine business executive.
To have been in the business as long as you have, you're talking about more than 3 decades. I guess you have some instincts. You have to be prepared. You have to be a leader. You have to get some mentoring. What is it, the cornerstone of a long, successful career in a company like Bank of America?
Well, I really do believe it's a great question. I really do believe that I'm an engineer, right? So I'm going to give you an equation. P plus R equals A. It's something that I've really lived by throughout my career. Even today, I meet teammates all the time, and regardless of where they are in the company, they're looking and they join Bank of America to advance, to grow. Most of our teammates do join us for career. So if A stands for advancement, I think there are 2 variables here in our company, and probably applies in many others, that are instrumental in you advancing. And the first one is P for performance. I guess other people can try to do it other ways, but we are Bank of America, and I had the pleasure of working with really some outstanding teammates who are really good and passionate about what they do as well. And so I've got enough average people working for me. I'm not looking for another average performer. But if you're a top performer, if you have the desire to dream a big dream and pursue excellence, then I'm always going to be interested in you. Whether I have a position today or sometime in the future. So my message always to young people coming up through our organization, or considering going on to college or professional school, is work to do great and outperform those. So performance does matter. And I like to believe that there's nothing average about me, Herb. I don't give average effort. I don't dress averagely. I'm not going to be an average preparer, and I damn sure don't ever plan to deliver average results. But performance alone isn't enough to advance. So there's this other variable, and that's relationships. And without question, throughout my life, I've learned the true value of relationships. My 6th grade teacher, Juanita Cook, introduced me to the importance of connecting, and got me involved in summer camps and organizations that, quite frankly, my grandparents didn't have the wherewithal, didn't even know anything about. But Juanita Cook was such a connector. So at age 11, I saw the value of the introduction of new people in my life and what they could do for me. But throughout my career, and without question today, I've learned that I know what I know, Herb. But generally speaking, if you're willing to talk to somebody else, now you got to benefit of what they know and their life experience and their work experience, not just their point of view. And that old adage that, hey, you develop relationships before you need them. And so without question, one of the things, as you mentioned, I have responsibility for escalations in this company. Well, I could pound the table to try to get things done, and some people are very effective at that. But my approach has been throughout the years, I've been here a long time. So as you can imagine, I've developed tremendous relationships over time. I'd like to believe that there isn't a person in this company I can't send an email to or pick up the phone and call. And if they don't know the answer, they're going to help get me closer to the answer. And so I've learned over the course of my career, it's not just what I know. Because of course we can get wedded into believing what our point of view is the right thing. And all those jobs that I've had about implementation, I've learned that it's not just technology. This technology is better than that technology. It's the implementation of the technology that really makes a difference. And the implementation of technology requires adoption, people believing in it, people willing to change. And that's where relationships come into play. And so whatever level of success I've really had in my career has been a direct result of not just my effort and results orientation, but an equal commitment to developing relationships with important folks and trying to be a difference maker. So like I have established, I don't want to do anything averagely. So my objective has always been with my people that my desire is to be the best person that you've ever worked for, the best leader that you've ever worked for. I've been doing this a long time. So some of the folks that work for me have been working a long time for a lot of different people. But it doesn't matter to me. My interest is help me understand, because that's my desire. I want to be the best. And what I found throughout my career is that if you can find people who think like you, who want to be part of something special, and then you can do something really, really special together.
Okay.
There are a couple of questions that are coming in.
I was going to bring that up. Absolutely.
Bring that up. Okay, and I'll start off with Yvonne Allman, who asked the question that Bank of America just recently put an investment with Mechanics and Farmers Bank. And is that just an investment, or do you plan to offer services that they don't currently offer?
Well, we recognize that, our brand, it means an awful lot to me and many of my teammates. But we also recognize that the brand doesn't resonate for all consumers. And we know what we've experienced. We made a commitment to economic opportunity and advancement for Black and Brown people. And we felt that there was more that we could do. And so we announced our $1.25 billion initiative. But that's great. But we also recognize that there are still small businesses and consumers out there that, for whatever reason, our brand doesn't resonate for them. And so an investment in some of these other minority-owned institutions are critically important if you're committed to these communities, to Black, African-American, as well as Hispanic communities. And so really across the country, we've made significant investments in several of the minority depository institutions to try to have an impact on these communities that we care about.
Okay, one more before we go back. This is from Wilhelmina Rembrandt. What major business decision, if any, and if you can disclose, do you regret making? If any, how did you manage recovery?
Well, hello, Wilhelmina. She's a dear friend. When I was younger, I would believe that, my business decisions were the right decisions. I thought I was inclusive, and I've, analyzed this 8 ways to Sunday, and of course, and let me present to you why, this is the right decision. And then you have lived experiences, and you realize, whew, there's an old saying in our business that in lending, I've never made a bad loan. They just went bad after I made the decision. But it's a great question from Wilhelmina because, thank God, to be quite honest with you, you grow and you mature, and experience becomes a great teacher, where you realize that stuff happens. That, at the time, with the information that I had at my disposal, not only did but I surrounded myself with people who also agreed that this was the right decision. Look what we're living through right now. Could any of us ever have predicted a pandemic? We never lived through anything like this. Or the financial crisis that we had you know, 10, 12 years ago. But that's the value that I have found in recognizing that I'm not a know-it-all. I'm going to work hard to do my research, analyze the information, and make a recommendation. But one of the distinct advantages that I have now as a business executive is I'm seeking input from others. I expect that I surround myself with individuals that are going to have a point of view and share that point of view. Because again, I've learned that despite what I think is the right answer, things happen, stuff happens. And I need folks to be in my ear to ask, but what if? Maybe I hadn't thought about it. Now my implementation and my execution can be that much better that, hey, if it does go sideways, it doesn't go south. And that's the advantage of being inclusive in your decision-making and recognizing that not only do I have all the best answers, but I'm actually going to seek out people. And some of my dearest friends, and I consider them that, are folks that I go to. I may be absolutely committed that I think this is the right thing to do, but I will still go to them and say, hey, I'm thinking about such and such and such and such. What do you think? And I go to them because I trust them to not only tell me truth, but also to provide their perspective and provide their lived experience that perhaps I haven't had. And if nothing else, we've all learned that, because how many of us shared lived experiences of living as a Black man or woman in the US? And there seemed to be this awakening that, oh, so we do go through life a little bit differently. Well, same holds true here in business. I haven't experienced everything. I haven't experienced every business cycle. And so being inclusive in your decision-making, I think helps you to recognize that, yeah, you might make a decision that look really, really good, but you try to mitigate the real downstream exposure by including others and hopefully being prepared if it really does go sideways.
We got another one here that we're really great question for you. Given how hard you work, how do you balance your work with life and family time?
Yeah, that's Linda the Castreek. Thanks, Linda.
You know, that's a great question. I guess my first response would be, I don't know what, I've never been a fan of this balanced work life because it's just life for me. But I can share my experience. I've got a great life partner in Kieth Cockrell. And we are on the same page. As important as my career is to me, I am not confused about the most important thing in my life, and that's my family. And so I take great pride. I've had, I don't know, 25, who knows, 25 different job titles in my career here at Bank of America over 28 years. So I've been called all kinds of things, including, you know, president of Charlotte. But the only title that I covet is dad. And Serena knows that. So therefore, she's helped me. If, of course, there have been periods in my life, in my career, that when I, you know, standard for me is I get a new assignment and I go deep. And for me to go deep, that requires time. And so send me everything. I want to read all the reports. I want to learn the history. I want to understand the business plan going forward and things of that nature. It requires time. I may not be the fastest reader, but I'm going to be prepared. So in particular, I remember after we bought LaSalle, I was working on the LaSalle transition in the Midwest. And so every week I flew to Chicago. And so I fly out first thing Monday morning, home Thursday evening. And it just wasn't working for me. By the time I got to Chicago, flew in, even though I was taking the first flight out at the crack of dawn, by the time I got to Chicago and then, you know, transportation into the loop. It was an hour on Central Time, an hour later. I felt like I was always behind by the time I got into the office. And I was up all, the crack of dawn on Monday morning. And then, my Monday was very, very long because I was in the office late trying to catch up from being behind. And so as you can imagine, that's a hard way to start your week, that you feel exhausted on Monday. So I went to Serena and I contracted with her. And I said, hey, sweetheart, this isn't working. I'm going to have to fly out Sunday evening. And Serena's response was, hey, that's going to be tough on the family because we have our routine on Sundays, church and brunch, and we always had a big Sunday dinner. She didn't argue with me. My piece was, hey, I just need to get my arms around this. I think if you can give me, 2, maybe 3 months max, I'll fly out on Sunday evenings. And she said, okay, but one thing's not negotiable. We're still going to have Sunday dinner together as a family. So guess what? She moved Sunday dinner up. So I could still have Sunday dinner with the family before I took off for Chicago. So that was the contract. And my advice to folks is that if family is really important to you, I looked for every opportunity I had to break that contract. So it became a big deal for the family when Dad's not flying out Sunday night. I'm not flying out till Monday. Dad's home tonight? Oh boy. Or they normally had me, knew I came in on Thursday night. I was looking for that opportunity, working especially hard, see if I could fly out Wednesday and have dinner with them Wednesday night. Because there are times when you need to demonstrate, not just talk about it, but demonstrate what your real commitment is. And if our commitment, and it is, what was our children, I can say, Herb, that I never missed a parent-teacher conference, never. And my kids are adults now, so my record is clean because education was important to us. Now, Serena made it easy for me to do it. She always scheduled parent-teacher conferences first thing in the morning. She always wanted that first appointment for us to be there because she knew that, hey, if I did on my way into work, I'm there, and then I could go on to work. But if she scheduled it during the middle of the day, things may happen during the course of the day. My intention is to be there, but my boss just called. I need to get this report out or something of that nature. So, and then the final thing that I'll just mention here is that because Serena knew that my desire was to be a great dad, because I knew my dad as a child, but I never lived with my dad. So I wanted my children to know that I was present and active in their life. And my wife, of course, never signed up for a commuter marriage. So I always felt a little guilty about that. But what we would do is that if I came home, whether I was traveling or not, and Serena said, hey, have you talked to Sierra, our oldest daughter? And I say, of course I've talked to Sierra. Well, that was code for her to say, something's going on with Sierra. And hey, you've been working hard. She didn't criticize me for working hard or working late. And of course, as a dad, of course I want to be present for my children. So I had to bite my tongue. What do you mean? Like, I don't know what's going on with my daughter. But that was our code. And so you develop little things. When I was traveling quite a bit throughout my career, I made it part of my children's life. So I bring them back a little gift. So I remember I was in the yo-yo capital of the world. And so I brought them yo-yos back. They didn't even know what a yo-yo was. And so that was great fun for Serena and I to teach them how, we can, do all these tricks on the yo-yo. Or things such as, when my kids were middle school or high school and you're getting those one-word answers, I'd always call them, when I was traveling and say, hey, how was your day? And I was getting frustrated with the one-word answers. Good. What you doing? Chilling. So that wasn't satisfying for me. And I wasn't actively engaged in their day. So I used to give them assignments before I'd leave. I pick a quote and I just have the author of the quote and the quote. And during the course of the week, they knew that, hey, before Dad gets home, you're going to have a conversation with me on what this quote means to you. And why do you think Dad selected this quote for you? And I had 3 children, and they all had the same assignment. And of course, you're going to have one that, I might call on a Monday and they're like, Dad, I already looked at the quote and here's what it means to me. And here's who the individual is. And I looked them up and they're doing this and that. Right. And the others would hear that. And so they knew that, hey, okay, I got to get on my job. But it gave me an opportunity to engage with them differently because that's what I was really seeking. And so for me, there are going to be times in your career where you're getting a new job or a big promotion and things of that nature, and you're going to have to dig in deep. But thank God I've had a partner who knows who I really am and could coach me, pull my chain from time to time to say, hey, don't forget what's really important. I used to take my daughters to, I had lunch with them and I always take them flowers on Valentine's Day. And you'll be amazed at what they remember, some of the things that I've forgotten, but were really special to them because you made the time. And so I'm just thankful that I know who I am and what I desire to be. And I've had a tremendous partner in life that shares those commitments and it really helped me try to stay on point, to try to make a way for my family, give them things that we could have never imagined, but also ensure that what's most important to me is raising these children and having this family.
Okay. Now, Faith Triggs has a question. What will Bank of America's future role be transforming the number of Charlotteans coming out of poverty based on the 2013 Harvard study, with our city being last in the nation in that study? We want to see more Kieth Cockrells coming out of Queen City.
Well,
so you're a role model.
Well, that's awfully kind. We share that commitment. Not only does Kieth Cockrell share that commitment, but Bank of America does as well. And so, Herb, as you know, we recently donated 10,000 Chromebooks to CMS families because we believe in what the mayor is trying to do, and this digital divide is real. We're proud of the fact that at Bank of America, our minimum, pay is $20 an hour, but you can't even apply for one of those $20 an hour jobs if you don't have the internet. We don't take paper applications. Most teachers today assign homework that requires access to the internet. So we know that it's not some nice to have. Digital access and technology is a requirement today for youth. And so that's just one example that we're trying to make in a substantial way. Now, we know at Bank of America, we can't solve all the issues here in Charlotte that we've got going on in the neighborhoods and CMS and the discussions that we're having. But what we're trying to demonstrate is leadership. And we're focused on education. It's been a pathway for me and many others that are like us. And so we're going to stay true to trying to do everything we possibly can to be in the schools whenever it's safe. And I want more students to know your story, Herb, as an example, my story. So they know that as important as sports is to me and in our lives, I never knew that I was going to raise 2 professional athletes. So sports is important. And obviously that's how my son and my daughter are going to make a living here. But there's more than just the athletes and, bouncing a ball or catching a football. And many, many more of us who are doing very, very well in our chosen profession. And I know that there are students who are like me, that somebody exposed me to engineering despite the fact that they never knew an engineer. So I don't subscribe to this, they have to see it to believe it, because that wasn't my life. I know that it wasn't your life. You and others have been trailblazers here, but somebody's got to expose you to it. Somebody's got to at least help you learn to dream about it, introduce you to it. And that's our opportunity, I think, here in Charlotte. is to continue. If we didn't just commit 10,000 Chromebooks, we committed 10,000 volunteer hours. So I'm committed, and I've got several students that I've challenged them for academic excellence. I'll pay them for every A because that's their reward. But likewise, I'll let them know I don't pay for Bs. In fact, you owe me money. I'll give you $20 for every A. You got to give me $10 for every B or less you make. So it's up to you. Are you willing to take that challenge? And that's what I'm hoping that we can continue to do, both as corporate citizens as well as individual citizens, to recognize that, the performance of our students here in Charlotte is unacceptable. We all can play a role. We all can play a role. At the very least, share your story in terms of who you are, what you are, and the choices that you made, because life is about choices. And I'm not perfect, but thank God, most of the decisions that I've made have been positive decisions. And hopefully I haven't repeated too many of the negative ones.
Yeah. So now there's another question, and we're going to be respectful of your time, from Charlene Richardson, who writes, I would love to understand your stance on making DEI metrics public, much like corporations share their financial earnings. This helps the consumer truly understand where the corporation stands with driving cultural changes for DEI. Shouldn't corporations share this as part of their social and corporate accountability? That's from Charlene.
Transparency sets you free. I believe in it. And we do it at Bank of America. We call it our human capital report, where, I'd say it this way. At Bank of America, I'm very, very proud of the progress, the improvements that we've made in diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm proud, but I'm not satisfied. But one thing is also very clear. It's not debatable. Well, some might try to debate us, that we've made progress because we publish the numbers. I don't think it's only important in corporate America, but I also think it's important in the academic environment as well. And so I serve on a school board here, and I'm proud that I've been able to influence them to publish their information as well, because it is what it is. The question is going to be, we all get measured on what we do, not what we intend to do or what we say. And so what does the record actually show? So I'm a big believer that transparency is critical in this space of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging.
Okay. And from Vivian Spruill, who has a question about what we call in this business user experience. Will you review the option to reinstall the drive-through window on Beatties Ford Road's Bank of America? I don't know if you handle stuff like that, but Vivian has a question.
Vivian, thank you for the question. I guess I would say that, of course, I'm willing to take the feedback and review it, but please reach out to me directly to help me understand what you think is the real need there. We have been, many of our customers know, we have been closing the drive-throughs in our locations because they're just not utilized an awful lot. And we're considering investment options and how we can continue to better serve clients, especially coming out of the pandemic. So many of our clients really have adopted digital. And so some of the transactions, or most of the transactions you do at the drive-through, you can do right in the home of your living room or at your kitchen table. And so please feel free to reach out to me if there's something that I'm missing there. And of course, I'm willing to engage in the discussion.
Well, Keith, we're running out. I got one final question that'll close us out. We still got questions coming in, but if you didn't have the dream job you're having now, or if they said, somebody came up and said, if you could be anything that you wanted to be, what would that be?
I'm in my dream job. I used to believe that if I wasn't doing, working at Bank of America, I'd be a coach. And I did that for a number of years because that was my ministry, if you will, to try to encourage academic excellence, because I'd use sports as my way to encourage leadership in selecting captains and rewarding academic excellence and performance on the field. But this is my dream job. You know, we have 16,000 teammates here. I'm committed to people. It's never, it's never been about me. And so to have the opportunity to be responsible for, how we bring people back into our environment here in the office safely, and how we get them engaged in the things that they're passionate about. As you can tell, education is one of those areas that I'm passionate about. But if it's healthcare, if it's food insecurity, if it's housing, whatever it is, I'm trying to play that match game with our teammates. That beyond your money and beyond the $1.25 billion that we're contributing into these communities, being present and proximate with a child or whatever it is that you care about could have an even greater impact. So for me, this is my dream job. I love Charlotte. I'm committed to the things that we're trying to do here. I believe in what we're trying to do here. I couldn't be more supportive of the mayor and the initiatives that she's leading at this point in time. We're a growing city, a welcoming city, a city that has been so welcoming to me and my family. So I'm happy. I'm just passionate about having a broader impact. And because I've been here, Gerald, for as long as I have, and in some cases been able to live some of the things that I believe by establishing relationships. From my perspective, in the seat that I have today, it does me no good to just say that I have relationships with whoever it is in this, the county commissioner or the mayor or other leaders in the business community here or on the education front, if I can't leverage that. And my hope is that I will continue to leverage the relationships, because if I can partner with Jesse Curitan over at Norvant, or the mayor's office, or the county, or Everest in CMS, then hopefully when we add 1 + 1, we get much more than 2, and we can have a much more powerful influence on these young people and the folks that are job insecure, housing insecure. So there's much work that we still must do here in Charlotte. I'm just committed to it. So I appreciate the opportunity to join you. Hopefully something in this discussion, Herb, may have resonated with some folks out there, but I'd like to leave them with just one thought. If you don't like the current course or pace that we're embarking on here, then be motivated to just not engage in the discussion. As important as C-suite conversations are, I want you to engage. And you can always call me or email me. I'm Kieth.Cockrell@bofa.com, and my number is 980-386-1771. I'm doing what I'm doing because there may be a better company out there. I'm not trying to say that we're perfect, but I choose to do it here because I believe in what Brian Moynihan and Andrea Smith and Steve Bolin, all the other executives that we have here. I believe in what we're trying to do. We're not perfect, but we're going to continue to demonstrate leadership in this community to make it better. And I'm hoping that more people will join us in their own way to make a contribution. So thanks for the opportunity, Herb. It's great to be with you, Gerald.
Appreciate your time. We need 2 or 3 hours with you, but this is all we got. So thank you for letting us impose on your day. We really enjoyed it.
And for answering questions for our audience too. And thank you and its participation. Great questions and great feedback.
We'll chat again soon.
Okay.
Thanks all.
Yep, thank you. There was an awesome topics here. Thank you so much. We'd like to thank everyone for joining us this afternoon. We like if you take a moment and visit our website to see some of our previous speakers from the community here in North Carolina. And what's up? is in the chat. You can check the chat and visit our website still to look on for additional speakers that we'll be having coming up in the future as well.
That's it.
That's it.
Thanks all.
Bye.
Have a great rest of the day.
Bye now.
Bye.
Great interview.
Great. Okay, every